second book, you see in the first and second book, you see that Logan is very much codependent on her young son, which is very unhealthy when you think about it. But he did see her broken and bruised, and so also he had no choice but to grow up very, very, very quickly. And you'll see as the series progresses that his intelligence comes from a place of pain. He had no choice but to grow up very quickly because of how his parents were.
That was, I seen him taking on that. I don't know if I have an echo. I'm sorry if I do. I seen him take on that role. And again, you know, I don't want to give too much away. You guys have to read that. I seen him take on that role. And that's why I was wondering, I thought maybe he was 4. I had him younger than what I thought he, you know, was. And he's a lot older than what I thought he was, because he was doing some mature things. Give us the backdrop of Logan and Christopher. Was they were just seemed to be in love until Carter came. So what,
Yes.
give us the backdrop of both as an individual and as a couple, those flashbacks or flash forwards you can give us.
Christopher and Logan's story is very complex in the sense that they were college sweethearts. They met when they were 18 years old. They were together all through undergrad. They fell in love. They had the same personality, very adventurous people. And then she got pregnant, which was not the intent on what they had planned. They planned on graduating college and traveling, and then she ended up pregnant, and Christopher married her because it was the best thing to do. But he lost his freedom in that relationship. He lost his freedom now as a married man, and now as a father, very young. They're only 22. And so he had to grow up rather quickly. And he harbored a lot of frustration and anger, and he felt like his life was taken over by his family. And so because of that, he became very angry. He didn't want to be a family man, but he felt forced into that role. And his drinking was not a cause because he felt so smothered. He was an alcoholic because he liked to drink. So Logan was never the blame for him to be an alcoholic, but she was a great excuse. You know, I drink because of you. I'm angry because of you. My life is over and ruined because of you. So it was no accountability there, but he was an alcoholic because he liked to drink. He liked the taste of alcohol. And it just so happened that she was the perfect, scapegoat for his alcoholism. But in the beginning, they are very, very much in love. They're best friends, but it took a very quick downward spiral when it was no longer to want to be with someone and to have to be with someone are two totally different things. And he wanted to be with Logan until he had to be with Logan. And that having to be with her took the spontaneity out of their relationship. It took the fun and joy out of the relationship, because it went from, we're going to travel the world and we're going to be spinsters and we're going to just enjoy ourselves. And now I have to work full time and I have to be a father and I have to be a husband. Christopher is very much the traditional male, in the sense of, you get a woman pregnant, you marry her. And that was their greatest downfall, because he didn't want to be married to her, but he decided that he had no choice but to be.
But that's a side that you show us as readers, and even in real life, we're readers, we tend to think that the books are real life. And we talk about them like they're real life, but that's a touchy subject to really bring out, that people be young. And it seems like it's generally always the man that runs, because the woman knows it's her body and it's something going different, and she loves her baby. I'm not saying all women would have that experience. You got some that feels like Christopher does.
Yeah.
But in saying that, the general thing seems like for a man to run as fast as he can, where we just like, our eyes are open to life and we're going to love our baby. And we usually
Mm-hmm.
left with the package. So I like the way you brought that out and showed that, people can be young and people can make mistakes. Not saying that the child has made a mistake, but a mistake in how they viewed their relationship
Mm-hmm.
loosely. And
Mm-hmm.
now, like you said, they have to have this relationship and do the right thing. You take us through some things and they would have to read it as they go further. But like you said, and you told us that she escaped from her husband. The things I thought about as a reader is, okay, I know there different states have different laws. You cannot just go with the baby. It would be like kidnapping.
Yes.
So some of the things that went through her head, do you think that she was doing those things because she knew that that was a true fate, that she could possibly be kidnapping her child, although he loves the father?
Yes. I I actually made sure I said that in Logan's internal dialogue. She knew, because in the state of Maryland, if you are married and you take your child without the parents' consent, you across state lines, you have kidnapped that child. And so they are originally from Maryland. So she did technically kidnap Carter. And if they went to court for divorce, it would not go well in her favor because she did kidnap Carter, and she kidnapped him for well over a year. And that was one of her biggest concerns. I have no proof of the abuse because I didn't take pictures. There's no documentation that he abused me. It's my word against his. However, he does have proof that I kidnapped my son. Um, and so Logan's one of the ultimate reasons why she was so afraid to file for divorce in the first book is because in her mind, if we go to court, I will lose my son and possibly face jail time because I kidnapped him. Maryland is not one of those states that tend to favor the mother over the father. It's equal footing. And there are some states where the mother is favored. Maryland's not one of them. It's very much equal footing in the protection of the father. And a lot of states aren't like that, but Maryland will protect the father's rights. And that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. But it can be a very dangerous thing in someone like Logan's position, where the woman is being abused and you take your son to a different state. You are kidnapping if you are married. So that was the biggest internal struggle for her. If I confront him, if I go and get a divorce, what if he is just so angry with me that he tries to take my son away from me? And he can do it. He can take my son away from me. There's also the problem of Logan not being a US citizen. She's from France. And so one of the great things about her marriage to Christopher is she got to stay in the US because she was married to an American citizen. If she divorces him, what does that mean for her staying here? It was just so many and I'm probably spoiling it, but in the third book, you get a lot of Christopher and Logan's flashback. And you get to see them when they're younger, and you get to see a lot of their struggles when they first start off married. And that was one of the things. If they don't get married, she's finishing college. Her parents are back in France. She's here for school. What happens now? She has to go back home. She's pregnant. He had to marry her. The marriage would not have happened had Carter never come about. And so he felt like, stuck, because now he has to marry her in order for her to stay here. In order for her to stay here, he has, and so he can raise his child, abuse his child. Their marriage has to happen. And so many thoughts are going through Logan's mind. If I divorce this man, I could lose my son. If I divorce this man, I might get kicked out the country. So she just felt so trapped in that marriage. And it's so ironic because in the beginning, Christopher felt trapped, but towards the end, Logan felt trapped, but they felt trapped for two totally different reasons.
Yeah, with I see also in the book how Logan really thought about it, like her job, her money. She just grabbed up a lot of money, not really thinking how long this would last forever, however long she's gone. But she's packing all this money, so that they can take care of things. And I saw her come from, I guess, a well-off middle class
Upper
that she
middle
was,
class.
to
Yeah.
just almost a vagabond type of
Yes.
living.
I that part of the story, I was inspired when I was in my early 20s. I had the great opportunity of being a camp counselor at a camp for children who were homeless. And they were homeless because their mother and them stayed in a shelter for battered women. All the kids who attended this camp, the state paid for, rather the city paid for them to attend this camp. And I was a counselor there. And we knew as counselors that all the children were there because their mothers have been abused. So they were staying in a women's shelter with their mothers. And I had the great opportunity to speak to one of the mothers of one of my campers. And she was telling me that she had come here from New York and she was in hiding from her husband. And she was telling me how she had 4 children and she didn't even pack any of her clothes. She packed enough of a week's worth of clothes for her 4 children. And she got here. And of course, the shelter helped her with clothes for herself and things like that. But that's where that came from. And she, believe it or not, she was a dentist. The woman, she was a dentist. And her husband had a practice together. And when he did the surgery and she just did the regular or she was just a regular oral dentist, and she left everything. And she said she emptied one of their savings accounts and left. She didn't take debit cards, credit cards, because you can track debit cards and credit cards. So she just emptied one bank account and she left. That part of the story I got from her story. She did not take the Greyhound like Logan, but she did take a train. And so that part was really easy to write because it was bridged off of someone else's experience that I've met. And and that's why that part to me is so realistic, because I just took another person's experience and switched it around. Instead of 4 kids, it was 1 kid, instead of a train, she used the Greyhound. So that's a true story to a woman that I had the fortune of meeting several years ago that I just, toyed around with. But yeah, she took just enough to make it. And Logan, she's not stupid by any means. She knows what Christopher is capable of. And you see in the 3rd book, I don't want to spoil anything, but Christopher is very, very, very smart. And it turns out that his ability to do things ends up helping Logan in the 3rd book, because Logan finds herself in a very tricky
Wow.
yeah, I don't, and this is off topic, but I tried to figure out, I really wanted to redeem Christopher. And I know a lot of readers are not going to find him redeemable. They're not, because he's done way too much in book 1 for a lot of women. I don't want to spoil the things that he's done to Logan, but he's done so many things to Logan in book 1 that I know a lot of readers are going to be put off by his redemption. Because he's a very hated character. But I could not allow the series to end without him being redeemed. And so in the 3rd book, I find that Christopher is very much redeemed. And it comes full circle. And you get to see him and his and Logan's dynamic now that they're not married. You get to see how well they would have been had the pressure of marriage never been on the table. And so I think some people will like Christopher's role in Logan's life in the 3rd book, but I do feel like a lot of readers are going to be really angry with me for the way I redeemed Christopher. I have no doubt about
I cannot wait to read it because I only read book 1.
yeah.
Also with you do weave a little love interest in there with Jackson.
Oh
Tell us
yes.
about Jackson.
Jackson, I have to start off by telling you, a lot of reviewers have mentioned the name Jackson Sparrow because of Pirates of the Caribbean. And a lot of people had asked me, so I just want to touch on this before I tell you about Jackson's character. Jackson Sparrow, the character in this book, main character in this book, love interest to Logan, is not named after the pirate from Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay. Jackson is actually my dog's name. And so I chose Jackson because I just gotten a puppy when I started this series, when I started the first book 8 years ago. I started this first book 8 years ago. And finally it's become what it is now. But Jackson was named after my puppy, Jackson. And then Sparrow I use because of the symbolism of what a sparrow is. Sparrows are very kind, trusting birds. And so they're the type of birds that will come and fly around people and would eat out of your hand. They're just very trustworthy and trusting, and they're very beautiful. And they're a lot of people take interest in going to take pictures of them because of their beauty, and they're known to bring peace of mind. That's where Sparrow came from. So Jackson after my puppy, and then I'm really big on symbolism, and I wanted him to be named after a bird because Logan now has freedom, and birds represent freedom. And I thought, okay, so if I'm going to choose a bird, what bird would I choose? I know one that's trustworthy and represents trust. So Logan has freedom, and she trusts the man she's going to fall in love with. That's really how Jackson's name came to be. So I just wanted to touch on that because a lot of people were like, well, you named him after the pirate from Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm like, no, I didn't. But okay, Jackson is a elementary school math teacher, and he teaches at Carter's new school. And Logan has to go to the school because Carter is acting out, as any child would, given the circumstances. Carter has seen, and as we spoke on, Carter has seen and heard so much in his young life, but he feels like he can't speak on how he feels because he is his mother's comfort. And Logan depends on him for comfort more than he depends on her for comfort. And so Carter does not want to upset his mother. He knows that his mother relies on him. And so he keeps everything bundled up. But he has these really bad bursts of energy, of negative energy, where he just acts out. And when he acts out, it's pretty negative, pretty terrible. But he never acts out at home. It's only around others, like his teachers at school, and doing things like getting into fights and destroying the classroom and knocking teachers, completely knocking teachers' desk over, and like just really being disruptive. And Logan never sees that side of him. And so when she gets the call to come to the school, and she's told that her son is suspended because he's, acted out yet again, she ends up meeting another teacher at the school, because it's protocol that when you have parent-teacher conferences, that the teacher is not alone with the parent, depending on the topic of the conversation. And so Jackson is there for the mere purpose of observing a meeting. But when she sits down and she looks at him, it's like immediate attraction for both of them. And they're in a small town, and she ends up seeing him again at a bar. And that's their second interaction. And I thought when I wrote this scene, I said, it's such I didn't want to write too much cliche, but the great thing about contemporary romance is that you can get away with just enough of the cliche of writing contemporary romance. I didn't want it to be cheesy. So I said, okay, I have one chance to bring them together in a way that, even though it's predictable, it still works. Because in contemporary romance, there's a lot of predictability, but you don't want more than 3 predictable moments, because then it's not interesting, at least in my opinion as an avid reader. And so him being at the same bar at the same time, and seeing her, I'm like, what's the chances that would happen? Never. But I get one opportunity to be cheesy. And so I use that moment to bring them together. And she's reading a book by Layla E. Hart. And Layla E. Hart is actually a real author, for those of you who are watching and you like romance, spicy romance. She's really great at writing. I'm sorry, I'm doing a plug of another author, but she's really great at writing romantic comedy, rom-com. So if you're into romantic comedies, please check out Layla E. Hart. So Layla E. Hart is Logan's favorite author. And she's in the bar reading a book by Layla E. Hart. And Jackson walks up to her and he thinks it's so bizarre that she's in a bar reading. And that sparks the conversation. And then that sparks the flirting. And thank God for Kelly, Logan's best friend, who comes in and makes the situation so awkward, that it all flowed so well. And from there, he went to the school and got her information. I don't want to spoil it, but he's a stalker, a good stalker,
A
but
good
he's a
stalker.
stalker. He knew what he wanted. He wanted this woman, and he made sure that he got her. I'm just going to leave it there. He made sure that he absolutely got what he wanted, which was her.
And
So
so just to roll back a little bit, in class, when they did have that meeting, which was a very good meeting, and it seems like Logan was against her and the teacher was in there and she felt very judged. So it didn't seem like they were going to get together there. So as a reader, it was like, oh, she's just going to go to school and she's going to find him. They're going to fall. She's going to like this man. But in that meeting, there was no way that she would ever like him just because the way he treated her in that meeting. So then that doing it that way, that was sort of gave rest to the way she felt at that moment in that meeting, because they drugged her through mud in that meeting and had her own background in tell us what she do again, because I can't think right off what she did in her background that Logan did. She was aware of how they was treating her in that meeting. So
she was a speech pathologist for children. And so she worked with special needs kids, kids with IEPs, individualized education plans, and 504s. And so her Carter's teacher, not Jackson, but his co-worker, Jackson, Carter's teacher, he pretty much was, no, I'm going to refer him, I'm going to refer him for SS, like student support team. I want him to have an IEP, pretty much what some educators do. And I'm an educator, so I've seen it. There are some educators who can't really manage or who don't have the best classroom management. And so the easiest way to get children out of your hair is to refer them for SST and, kind of get them removed from your classroom. If a child has an IEP, now the SPED teacher has to deal with him or her. It's ways to maneuver to get children that you don't care for out of your classroom. I've seen it happen countless times in my 8 years of education. And so that's pretty much what he was trying to do. He was trying to get Carter out of his classroom. He didn't want to deal with him anymore. He's been a problem since the beginning of the school year. He's unmanageable. He doesn't like this little boy, and I want him out of my classroom. And so because Logan is a speech pathologist and she works with special ed teachers and she knows the game that's played, she stood up for her son and she was an advocate for her son. And, she's like, no, this isn't going to happen, and she held her ground. She definitely held her ground in that moment and showed her strength in that moment, like Mama Bear, full force. She was not going to allow anyone to, treat her son in such a way.
I like that. And also to show him acting out. I do a lot of volunteer at the school. I volunteer high school, elementary school, and preschool. And so I get to see a lot of backlash that the kids do. First grader, on Mondays, they just ready to tear up everything. And our teachers, kudos to you and all the teachers out there, because they know our children better than we do. They have their home face and their school face. So I say that to say all this. So the schools that I was in, they don't just label that is a problem child. They look, they say, well, something is going on at home. On Mondays, they're this way. On Tuesdays, they'll be better, because this room is just loud on Mondays, a lot of screaming. And you see a little kid, first grade, come in the room, boom, that's how they kick the door and they sit down and they have the emotions. And so the school that I was at, they have little signs and stuff, have them stand in front of, how do you feel? Point to the circle of how you feel. So they get them to calm down. They get them to calm down, and they don't assume that this is a bad child. I hate to use the word bad, or that he's acting out of in some sort of way. They assume that there is something definitely going on. And they cannot, and you, for yourself being a teacher, you cannot diagnose anyone, especially if the parent doesn't come through. You can, in your own mind, assess these things, but you cannot diagnose. It is so wrong to diagnose
Yep.
the child being a teacher. So I like the way you brought that out, that they, seeing the clear picture that something is going on. Now, another small hashtag spoiler with Jackson, and Jackson now liking her and seeing Carter. I was wondering how that's going to play out, because at first you gave a hashtag spoiler, a note to just Carter just doing all these things. And I'm thinking as a reader, there's no way Carter is just going to let Jackson be in his life like that. And so I saw that. And so I'm glad that you showed how, okay, we know what's going on. She knows what's going on. And Carter is no fool. He knows that he is trying to be sweet on his mother and try to get in. So I like the way you didn't just show this kid, okay, now I need a dad, or now here's a man coming to rescue me from my feelings and everything. So tell us about that without trying to give it all away, how you just weave that relationship in. And Salt took note that it was very important that he was just not going to get close to Carter that easy.
Jackson has a way about him, and he's a elementary school teacher. So of course, it's the assumption that he loves children. He's a soccer coach, and he saw that Carter played soccer during recess. And so that was his in with Carter, and he did his, I hope I did it in a way that you see that Jackson has a sincere investment in Carter outside of Logan. So he's attracted to the mother, but he genuinely likes the son. And so he becomes his soccer coach, and he starts to woo Logan. And by wooing Logan, of course, you would assume that they're going to eventually, be together around Carter. And Carter likes video games. Well, Jackson's a big kid. Jackson also likes video games. And so Jackson has built his own relationship with Carter in that first book. And when you read the second book, spoiler alert, Jackson is not only grieving, Logan, he's grieving Carter as well, because he has created such a bond with Carter. And when you think about it, Carter is with Jackson a lot of the time. He's with him at school. And then he's with him every Saturday, all day for soccer. And, so it's like they have their own relationship. I really wanted to make sure that Jackson and Carter had their own relationship outside of Logan, because I needed Carter when he grows up, because Carter has a standalone book. Carter has a standalone book. When Carter grows up, his relationship with Jackson is very, very much, his relationship with Jackson is very, very much paramount on how the man he becomes, because his only example of a husband is Christopher, and Christopher is very abusive and doesn't know how to show his feelings. And his only impression of a father is Christopher until Jackson. And so Jackson plays such a pivotal role on who Carter becomes, because he sees that not all men beat their wives, and not all men are horrific to their wives. And so I really needed them to have their own personal relationship outside of Logan. And when you read the second book, you see that Carter and Jackson have such a sweet bond. And even in the third book, Logan, spoiler, Logan tells Jackson she's jealous. She's jealous because she misses her son. Carter prefers Jackson. In the third book, Carter is 10 years old, about to be 11 years old. He likes girls now. He's growing up, about to start middle school. And he prefers the company of Jackson. His mom is his mom, but he prefers Jackson. And Logan even says, he just wants to be around you. I've been kicked out the club. So they have a really special bond. And I wanted to make it as honest and as realistic as possible. I didn't want to just throw Jackson in the mix, because what mother would just allow a random man, even if he is a teacher at the
Yes.
school, what
Yes.
mother would allow a random man around her child? I also wanted it to be realistic in the sense that Carter is going through a traumatic internal conflict. And so to just accept someone else into his life when he misses his dad was not realistic. So I made sure that I brought Jackson and Carter together in a friendship, and a
Yes.
goofy friendship that was very light and fluffy, so that it didn't, and it was never, their relationship has never been intense in any of my books. None of the three books is Carter and Jackson's relationship intense, because I wanted it to be a slow building of love between them.
Yeah, that was good. And you did show as a reader a little bit in that first book um, how I gathered that even though women try to raise their sons, they're
Mhm.
not supposed to. They don't have, neither does the father have what it takes to be a mom.
Mhm.
So I saw how you did that in the first book, how you let us as reader know that he does need a man prevalent in his life.
Mhm.
His father may be this, and you show that a kid, no matter how the abuse is, you showed also how he longed for his father, even though he knew that his father was abusive. Because the kids,
Yeah.
they want their father, they want their mother, no matter how,
Yeah.
if he's an alcoholic or if he's abusive, they want that, their parent, whichever one it is. So I
Mhm.
saw how you did that. So it looks like to me that you went full circle on the dynamics of the family, whether it's going to be blended or is it
Mhm.
going to be with this father? How are we going to introduce this relationship? Where you even show in there, and there's a hashtag small spoiler with um, Logan, even though she's talking to Jackson,
Mhm.
you left an impression on her that she had to contemplate, I'm still married, you
Mhm.
know, and
Mhm.
there was something that I'm not going to tell that
Yeah.
made me say, wait a minute, was that a lie? Was that a
Yeah.
lie she told Jackson just
Yeah.
so she could not get close? He could not get close to her? Did she
Mm.
feel like he was getting a little bit too close and she wasn't ready to open it up for
Yeah.
the rebound man?
Mm.
You know, I saw
It's
all of that.
it's so funny you say that. The number, I tell you, the word don't, I don't know if that the scene you're talking about, when he says that he loves her and she says don't, that one word has gotten me so much grief since this book has come out. I'm telling you, my ARC readers have really laid it on me with that one word. Like, well, I know one reader told me, she's like, I've never hated a word so much than when I read don't. And I thought that was the funniest thing. But yes, she, I'm not going to spoil it because I think that would destroy the first book for anyone who hasn't read it. But
Yes.
she's torn. Logan's torn because she is still married, at least by documentation's sake. She's still legally married, but spiritually, emotionally, their marriage ended a long, long time ago. Um, but legally she is still married, and that's a problem on so many different levels for her and Jackson. It's a huge problem. And as far as Carter goes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. He needs his father, and he even says to Logan, I know I'm supposed to hate him, but I can't. And I miss my dad. And that, I think that was the premise. I think that was the concluding factor, that yes, I saw my mother laying a bloody mess on the kitchen floor. Yes, I left with her um and moved to a different state. Yes, I know he's not supposed to know where we are. Yes, I haven't spoken to him in 2 years. Yes, it's just me and her against the world, but I still miss my father. It's because even though Christopher was a terrible husband, he was a phenomenal father. And so that knowing, you're torn between two people, you're torn between the person who's been hurt and the person who hurt the person that has been hurt. So Carter's such a strong character. I really hope that when people read him, they appreciate his strength as a child. I hope that I gave a realistic account, because there are a lot of children who are taking care of their parents in these situations, and that's the reality. And his father was an alcoholic, his mother is anxious and depressed, and here he is striving to make things better, for everyone involved. So yeah, and I think this is off topic, but I really appreciate Jackson, because Jackson brings in this lightness into Carter that he doesn't get from either of his parents. Both of his parents have some type of mental strain going on, with Logan and her depression, with Christopher and his alcoholism, and then you have goofy, sweet, kind-hearted Jackson. And I think that he is just the remedy for Carter. Just the remedy for Carter.
And I like that you didn't have the child to side with either parent, because a lot of time we tend to do that as moms. We tend to, we don't spell it out. Some of us probably do go, here comes your father. Some of us probably do spell it out, but I don't think it's fair to put our opinion based upon that child wanting to be with his father. That's where we mess up as women.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if we get and this might sound harsh, but they became intimate and made Carter, and still in real life. So you got along for that, but you can't get along to parent. We need to know how to parent. And I think it get really sticky, and I'll be honest, when people are just the baby daddy, but you're still being intimate. That is very confusing. And so yes, I took it there because it caused that woman to have those emotions that she really thought she was done with. And then when she tear herself down again, then now she wants the kid and take the kid away from loving his dad. He he or she does not need to miss out on loving their father the way they want to love, in spite of how the relationship is. Let them love their father. Do not take that away from them.
I agree.
Don't take it away. Let them decide, as they get older or as they bond, that he is not someone that he would want to be around. And also they find out that sometimes they were better off without that parent. But it's not up to us, unless for the fact of safety. Then I think we have to be that advocate for the safety.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah.
We have some things here on the board. Let's see what folks are saying, because I saw a lot of stuff here on the board. Let's see what we have. Okay. Wendy said, I would never advise anyone to get married because of pregnancy. If you do not love that person, you are setting yourself up for regret. What do you think about that?
I think that's 100% true. I think that's 100% the truth. And that's that was the beginning of the end of Christopher and Logan. The pressure of having to be together. I sincerely believe that and I said it already, and I'm repeating myself, there's a difference between wanting to be with someone and having to be with someone. And her being pregnant and not, a citizen of this country, and the possibility of having to leave and taking the child with her, Christopher was put in a situation where he had to marry her or let her go. There was no middle ground there. It wasn't a matter of, okay, we're not going to be together, but she's going to live on this street and I'll live 3 blocks over and I'll see her and my son whenever I can. No, she's going to a different continent, after school. So it was a forced hand. And sometimes when people's hands are forced, they don't come out the best people on the other side. And that's not an excuse for Christopher's behavior. Christopher became a monster. But I believe that every monster has a beginning. There's a preface. There's, there's an antecedent to every, monster. They don't just wake up villains. Something happens to turn them into that. And his lack of freedom turned him into a villain. And ironically, her lack of freedom turned her into a warrior.
Yes. And that brings me to what Wendy said. She said that a mother will do whatever it takes to shield their child. Let's see what else is on here. Redeem with someone else. I hope. She hoped that she'd be redeemed with someone else.
I know. I think I know who she's talking about.
Yeah, she said the way the authors, Wendy also said the way the authors get their characters. How y'all get y'all characters. She said, Wendy also said, I was surprised that Carter didn't confine in any way of the teachers thought, wait a minute, let me see. I was surprised that Carter didn't confine in any of the teachers throughout the whole book.
Oh, yes. No, Carter was trained very well not to speak on it. There's a scene in the first book, I believe it's around chapter 4 and 6, when Logan is in the bathtub and she's thinking about the fact that she wants to get them a counselor. She wants to find someone for them to talk to, but it was a moot point because she had trained him not to say anything about their situation. And so Carter knew very well what he could say and what he couldn't say because she trained him in that matter. You can't talk about your dad. You can't talk about what happened to us. You can't talk about why we're here. And so Carter had no choice but to keep everything to himself. And even in the second book, when Logan confronts Christopher, because she does confront Christopher, spoiler alert, one of the things that she says to him is that I couldn't get our son or myself the help that we needed because I was so afraid that he would say the wrong thing to the wrong person. So Logan trained him very well when he was very well versed on what he could and couldn't say. And he knew he couldn't say much.
Wow. And so she said she liked also the Layla E. Hart.
Oh.
And Wendy also said, I think Jackson has a hidden anger problem.
I wonder where she got that from. I don't know.
We shall see.
That's so interesting.
I didn't see it yet, but Wendy and I would go back and forth. Maybe she's seen something a little bit more. Only thing I can think of is like
she saw something that I didn't even see, and I love that when readers see more into the characters than the writers do. I'm trying to think. I don't know
unless she thinks he's too nice for his own good that he's got to turn.
But definitely
the only part where I've seen that he may have anger, but within right to me, is when they were in the office and when she said, don't fall in love. And it was like he was trying to push that, you need to have the door open just a little bit. So maybe in those two spots, but I really can't put my finger on it.
I know what she's talking about.
Says that Jackson and Logan have a faulty foundation because of Logan's secret. If she's telling me to head of something, okay, Layla, we gotta get back. I gotta get to the rest of them. A faulty foundation because of the secret. Now I know as far as she talking about a secret, I gotta read the other books and I can't wait to read the other books. But there were times I felt as a reader that she could have told him that she was married, but she made it seem
several
like
times.
I'm like, what?
Several times.
When you're married, and she got all these pit holes of excuses without saying what's going on, But quite a few people do that. They're married and they just want a side chick, and they really don't know that the person is not married. But in her case, it was just totally different. It was like something she wanted to bury.
She wasn't keeping it from him because she wanted to have a side piece. She was keeping it from him because if she says, oh, I'm married, well, where's your husband? He's in Maryland. Well, why isn't he here? then what?
The questioning, the
You
questioning.
know, the questions. And it all came back to, and it didn't help the fact that she was attracted to him, because she was ultimately attracted to him. But she just couldn't bring herself to admit to anyone that she was married, because there were so many questions that came about with her being married. And she always thought it would come back to, she kidnapped her son. Miss Reader, Miss Wendy, I do know what she's talking about. Miss Wendy's on the second book, I believe, and you do see a part of Jackson that lets you know that he is capable of doing some pretty
Okay, so
crazy
I got to
things.
get to that. And Layla Hart said, thank you for the plug. And also she said what we just spoke about, the foundation of her not telling that she's married. That's what she's talking about. The hidden foundation. And Layla says she is interested, and she thinks she can't trust him. She thinks that Logan is interested, but she thinks she can't trust him.
Which makes sense, because think of it, the person, your first love, since you've been with since you were 18 and you're 28 years old, and that's your best friend in the whole wide world. And a few years into it, he's trying to kill you. You know, he's physically, emotionally, and mentally breaking you. I think anyone, man or woman, after being put through the situation where if you can't even, I mean, it's one, I say this, I genuinely believe this, and I think a lot of women can relate. It's one thing to meet someone randomly and, you see how things go. And then you hook up a few times, and then you date for a couple months, and then you're in a relationship. The foundation came from the spontaneity of you two meeting and hooking up. But when you have a genuine friendship with someone, if you build a genuine friendship with the person before you start dating them, the betrayal is always so much deeper, and the sting of that betrayal is so much harsher.
Yeah.
And so when you fall in love with your person and that person was your friend before you fell in love with them, it just hurts a whole lot more. And it makes it so much harder to trust, in my personal opinion. And that was Logan and Jackson's story. I'm sorry, Logan and Christopher's story. They were friends before they were lovers. And so his hatred of her and his abuse of her cut so deeply that if he would do this to me, there's no telling what anyone else would do to me.
That's
Because
true,
this was
because he's a
this was my
friend.
person. Yeah, this was my person.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on that time. Do tell us about snippets of the other books to come. And
Yes.
you also have 2 sets of series in which each reader can enjoy. Let's talk about these 2 and then tell them the other series that you have, just the titles of the other series.
Yes, thank you so much for that. So this series that we just spoke on, Being Yours, it's a 3-book series, a trilogy. The first book is Being Yours. That's the one we spoke on tonight. That is currently available on Amazon. Then there is Loving You, the second book that's currently on Amazon. And then Wanting You will be coming out soon, within the next 90 days. So those are the 3 books in the trilogy of Being Yours. It focuses again on Logan Reed, a woman who is emotionally, physically, and mentally abused by her best friend turned husband of 10 years, and decides to run to save herself and her son from that misfortune, falls in love, and tries to start over. Keyword, tries to start over. Things do not go as smoothly as she hoped. I have another series that's also coming to an end. That's A Winter's Tale series. There are 8 books in that series, 5 of which are published. Kiss, Promise, Vow, Secret, Seduction, Deception, Embrace, and Fate will all be out within the next year. Book 6, which is Deception, comes out the end of this year. And in the beginning of 2023, you get the last 2 books, Embrace and Fate. And the next standalone I have coming out, I just wanted to let you guys know about, is a book called Loosed. It comes out this spring, which I'm really excited about. It's the story of a woman who has no choice but to leave her hometown, small hometown in Georgia, to move to the big city of New York with her estranged sister and her husband because of something incredibly scandalous that she did back in the small town in Georgia. I won't give it away. And as she's starting over, there's so many different things happening within this small apartment between the two sisters and the younger sister's husband. This is based off of Tennessee Williams' play, A Streetcar Named Desire. I'm doing a rewrite where the characters are of African American and Hispanic descent. So it's a rewrite, but with a little flavor. So I'm really, really excited about that. That book is, I think that book's going to blow a lot of people's minds. And it's a standalone, it's not a series, one and done type deal. And so I'm really excited about that. That title is Loosed, and that's available on pre-order on Amazon.
Yes, yes. So
Yes.
when we're done, do tell us about your experience tonight. Do pop all those books you were talking about. I did read the first book of A Winter's Kiss, so I got
Mhm.
7 more to go, and I am
Yes.
so excited. You know how I have to read with other shows and stuff like that, but I will
Yes.
dip back, and I love everything you write. And
Thank
so,
you.
like I said, when at first, like your book covers, some fire, some steam, I'm going, oh, I can't, Christy, you're gonna have to write some, and you already had something out that I can read, just a little bit of
Yeah.
simmer, a little steam, like if you're in a sauna and put a little steam on a hot rock, that would be me. Not so much steamy, spicy, but you have 2 sets of series that I can read, and I am so
Mhm.
looking forward to finishing those. Tell the folks where they can reach you at, and what handles are you on?
Yes. So you can reach me on Facebook at Christy Taylor Author. You can reach me on Instagram at Christy Taylor Author. You can reach me on Goodreads at Author Christy Taylor, and I'm also on TikTok as Author Christy Taylor. So Author Christy Taylor all across the board, except for Facebook, which is Christy Taylor Author.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you
you for
so
being
much.
here. Well, before you even go, just kind of put both series in your mind that you just told us about. And what
Mhm.
do you want the folks to take away from any book that they read from you, whether standalone or series?
I write about realistic women who have quirky personalities and have honest insecurities. They are not the epitome of perfection. None of my women are written in a way that are not relatable. There's always some type of realistic issue with them, whether it's anxiety or depression or OCD, or just it's because that's the reality. Body morphia issues. I write real women, and then their love interests are men who accept them for who they are. So
Hmm.
that was my biggest thing. I want my women to be a realistic um a realistic vision of what women go through. I don't want the perfect female lead character, because I wouldn't even know how to write her as a flawed woman myself. So if you want to read a good love story about a woman who definitely has some things going on, but she overcomes them in the end, and about a man who has no desire to change her, then I think my books will be for you. I also want to note, none of my characters have sex before marriage. That's a personal thing with my faith. So if you read a series of mine, in the first book, there's not going to be any sex because they're normally not married within the first book of any of my series. So that's just, it's a slow burn, but I think it's worth it in the end.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, Christy. We
Thank
look
you for
forward to
having
more of your
me.
work. You are so welcome. Good night. And I'm going to tell the folks what's going on, what's coming up. You can
Thank you.
drop yourself down. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so
Good
much.
night.
Bye.
Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being here. I'm going to let you guys know what is coming up. So stay tuned for our shows that's coming up. So I put in the feed, I'm going to drop that in there now. Our next spotlight coming up will be Duncy's Trunk. And that is by Elaine T. Jones. You guys will see that. And it is a true story about their history. So that's Aunt Duncy's trunk. And she will be here on the 27th of January, which is our last show. So that'll be our last show for this month. So that's Aunt Duncy's trunk. You guys take a look at that. And it's going to be Elaine T. Jones and two of her family members. They're going to talk about their family history. So February is coming up real soon. So let me show you guys what's coming up. So hopefully you guys can see that book. I know it's a little light here. Let's see where I can find it at. And coming up February 8th, that's our first spotlight. And that's going to be Mary Ellen Cenovich. And we're going to talk about her book, Truth Lives. In this story, you will see yourself. Really, you will see yourself and be accountable for what you say, how you deal with people. And this book here has 120 saying or proverbs, if you want to say it. Do not read it as a novel. Do read it as a devotion. So take your time. So she's going to come up at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's going to be February 8th. And also on the 15th of February, we're going to have, we had her before, and that is Carolyn Omoifo. And I'm going to put that link there. It is on Kindle only. It's an ebook or a Kindle. And this topic, we're going to still talk about female genital mutilation. I just put the link there. And it is called The Greatest Hijacked. So you guys will see that, The Greatest Hijacked. Do look at that link. We will have Carol Omoifo Elagumbo, and she will be there with us live, and that will be February 15th, I'm sorry. And so guys, this is our book of the month. We have a book of the month, and this is February 24th, and you'll see some of our book club, and we will talk about why are all the Black kids sitting together in the cafeteria, and other conversations about race. And this is by Beverly Daniel Tatum, PhD, 20th anniversary edition. So we will talk about this. We'll talk about race. This is something America does not want to talk about. Their big cancer, hatred is just so messy, and our world is messy now. We're going to be very transparent, very, very transparent. It's going to be a shocker as we talk about this. We're going to talk about it. It's going to be a great in-depth conversation. So I'll hold that up for a little bit. Hopefully you guys can see that. And so that's our 3 Februarys. So you'll see that there. Do watch the replay. And also we have our March coming up. So on March 8th, this is going to be a live show. We like to show you guys our book early, so that way if you want to get it, you'll be able to have it. I'm going to put up both books. So we will have live Jacqueline Mitchell. She will be live on our show, and that is March 8th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our group first read this book here. It's a nasty court case from the O'Keefe family, and it is by Jacqueline Mitchell, A Theory of Relativity. We read it about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. We're going to talk about this, a little glimpse of this. We will talk about a little glimpse of this. We'll discuss both books, but a glimpse of this one. I'm going to try to hold up so you guys can see it. Try to get it there. Hopefully you guys can see it. So it is titled, again, A theory of relativity. This right here, it is so compelling. You guys will be all in your feelings. And in this story, you'll see a terrible accident that left Kiefer orphaned, but not unwanted, devastated by his beloved sister's tragic death. 24-year-old bachelor Gordon McKenna assumes that he will be entrusted with raising his niece, whom he has groomed extremely close to over the few precious months of Kiefer's life. But the child's paternal grandparents have different idea, and a fierce legal battle ensues that will test the capacity and limitation of family love again and again, and no one will emerge from its unscathed or unchanged. So this is the story we'll hear Jacqueline Mitchell talk about a glimpse of this. And this is her new release that we'll talk about. So it'll be a glimpse of the old vintage book, and this is the new release, guys. Hopefully you guys can see that. So the new release by Jacqueline Mitchell is The Good Son. So our group, we will talk about this, and let me give you guys a glimpse of that. So we see it right here. And so we will give you a little small glimpse of the synopsis. And what do you do when the person you love best becomes unrecognizable to you? For the answer is simple and agonizing. You keep loving him somehow. Stefan was just 17 when he went to prison for the murder of his girlfriend, Belinda, a crime he has no memory of committing. We'll just leave it right there and just give you a little small glimpse of that. So it is called The Good Son. So we cannot wait to dig in this. We don't have any snippets for you. I will be reading this. And so these two are our February 8th. We'll just do glimpse. Like I said, we read this before, and we'll give you snippets, but we'll discuss this book. We do not want to give it away. And also our book of the month, I hope I didn't show you guys that too fast, is going to be by Dave and Carol Harhuba in Rose. So this is a story, a biblical depiction of story of love of a man for a woman, love of a couple for their families, the love of families for their community, and the love of community for their God. So you guys will see that is apocryphal and apocalyptic. So don't make me say those words again. So this is what's going to be happening. Thank you guys for being there. Thank you so much, guys. Here at ESP Presents, we're going to start every Tuesday, starting the 25th of January. We're going to do a shout out. That's when it's going to be on Instagram only at 9 a.m. 5 authors could come up on our live in 2 minutes or less. You will tell us about your book, and I will start the clock once I ask you, after I ask you, tell us about the name of your book and who you are. The clock will start. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. And that is a platform for authors to talk about their books. So that'll be on Instagram starting January 25th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, only every Tuesday. We call it Scout Out, Shout Out. We was doing it on Facebook about 2 years ago. And April, I'd like to shout her out. April Thomas, she was one of the first ones to be our spotlight Scout Out, Shout Out. And so, and she's still with us, and we still do books with her, but you could take it a little further. So it's 2 minutes, as I said, to talk about your book. And if you want to take it further as an investment and be one of our spotlight authors, that is a 1-hour show. And in that show, you will get a recording of the video, like what we did tonight, and everything we did tonight, we will do there, and you'll get an honest book review. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching. Do swipe and share. You guys have been great. I really enjoy you guys. And thank you for tonight's show. So you guys stay tuned, keep it locked on ESP Presents and ESP Book Chat, where we bring page turners your way. That is our night tonight. Thank you guys so much. Thank you who are watching from YouTube, Facebook, those who are watching overseas, Instagram. Thank you guys so much. Good night.